Am I the asshole for picking a fight and telling my dad to grow up over a used pad? Disclaimer, this is not my story. My 12-year-old sister got her first period a few days ago. It was rather stressful for her since her whole life she lived in a house with no women. With the help of a few female friends, I ended up getting her all the stuff she needed, and a few friends taught her what she needs to know. It was a rough start with a lot of cleaning, but she got in the hang of it. My dad didn't help much. In fact, I don't think he even knew she got her period before today when he saw a used pad in the bathroom trash. I heard him complaining about it to my sister and I stepped in. I was already irritated as about 20 minutes before that me and my dad got into a light argument. He was saying she shouldn't just be laying those things around. Part 2 is up. Part 2. Am I the asshole for picking a fight and telling my dad to grow up over a pad? Disclaimer, this is not my story. He was saying she shouldn't just be laying those things around and didn't want to see bloody products in his bathroom. I told him that it wasn't a big deal. It was one pad with some toilet paper on top of it. If it bothered him so much, all he had to do was take some more toilet paper and shove it down. That's when the argument got worse, and we both was borderline yelling at each other. When I said, "This whole thing is stupid, it's just a little bit of effing blood. It was in a trash can and mostly covered. Grow the hell up." He bit back saying it's not immature for him not wanting to see my sister blood stain pass around his space as well. That is gross and isn't his problem, so he shouldn't have to see it. Ooh. Am I the asshole for reporting my sister for child abandonment? I'm a 32-year-old woman, my sister's 34, and her husband have 3 children. So she's not a single mother and not struggling financially. Yet she insists I watch her kids because you never see them. Come on, be a good aunt. She and her husband can afford a babysitter, but just prefer to leave the kids with relatives. The other day, she came to my house and told me to let the kids come in as she had errands to run. I did what I usually do and told her to get lost, and that usually works, but this time she decided to leave the kids on my porch and drove away. I immediately called my county version of CPS and reported it as a case of child abandonment. Long story short, the kids were taken into protective custody. My sister and her husband had to get a lawyer and go through a mountain of procedures to get them back. I thought what I did was well deserved, but my mom has been on my case telling me I was cruel. I believe I did what any law-abiding citizen should do, but what do you think? Am I the asshole? I don't know. I personally wouldn't do that to my sister, but if, it's happening over and over again, maybe y'all need to have a little talk. But if y'all want me to do more story times like this, just let me know. So, yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed this hairstyle. But, yeah, just leave a comment. Is she the asshole or is she not the asshole?
Imagine your parents leaving you with someone they thought they could trust, only for you to end up being tortured by the entire neighborhood. In July of 1965, Sylvia Likens, 16, and her younger sister Jenny, 15, were sent to live with a woman named Gertrude Baniszewski. Sylvia's parents were in desperate need of money and joined a traveling carnival. They promised Baniszewski $20 per week to take the girls in. Baniszewski already had 7 children of her own, so what's 2 more? Little did Sylvia's parents know this would be the last time they'd see their daughter alive. At first, the payments were on time and Sylvia and Jenny fit right in. Jenny had polio and wore a leg brace, so Sylvia did the chores for both of them and took care of her. The problems began when the payments for their room and board was late. Gertrude started beating the girls with paddles. One day in August, the girls were beaten 15 times because Gertrude's oldest daughter told her that the girls had overeaten that day. The abuse quickly escalated and poor young Sylvia became the focus of Gertrude's wrath. It's thought that Gertrude, who was 36 at the time, and her eldest daughter Paula were jealous of Sylvia's looks. Gertrude would starve Sylvia, followed by force feeding her until she'd vomit, then force her to eat the regurgitated contents. She once struck Sylvia so hard across the face that she broke her wrist, and then when the cast dried, she used it as a weapon. Slowly, Gertrude got her children to join in on the horrific abuse, followed by the neighborhood children. She encouraged them to use Sylvia as a dummy and practice martial arts on her. As more children joined in, Gertrude gained popularity and the violence became more extreme. At one point, she forced Sylvia to strip and use a glass bottle on herself in the middle of the living room for the neighborhood boys to watch. By the end of summer, Sylvia was forbidden from attending school and held captive at home. Because of the continuous cruelty, Sylvia had become incontinent. This angered Gertrude and she had Sylvia tied up naked in the basement on October 6th. Poor Sylvia was then subject to burns, beatings, verbal and physical sexual assault, and etc. She was also given very little to eat and forced to wet herself and use dark corners of the basement as a toilet. Word spread in the neighborhood amongst the children and they would pay 5 cents apiece to come and see Sylvia for themselves. The broken, scarred, and burned body of a teenager was a sight to behold for a curious child. Neighbors would later recount hearing screaming coming from the house until 3 in the morning at times, but in those days, no one wanted to intrude on others' household affairs, so no one came forward. Even Sylvia's older sister, who was told twice by her and Jenny about the abuse, thought that the sisters were exaggerating and did nothing about it. It seemed like everyone was turning a blind eye. However, for Sylvia, the horror kept escalating. Crime Fanatic Friday Part 2, the girl tortured by an entire neighborhood. After holding 16-year-old Sylvia Likens captive in the basement, Gertrude Benezuski's heinous acts continued at a greater rate. Gertrude, her 7 children, and the neighborhood kids would help Gertrude restrain Sylvia as she received scalding hot baths and cuts, where Gertrude would rub salt into her wounds and sores. On October 23rd, they bred in her stomach with a hot needle, saying, "I'm a prostitute and proud of it." Once finished, Gertrude's 10-year-old daughter tried to brand Sylvia's left breast with a heated bolt that had an S on it. Sylvia knew that she was dying and even told her younger sister that she didn't have long to live. She tried to escape on October 25th but was caught by Gertrude before she made it to the door. The final day of Sylvia's life was different than the previous months. She was delirious and couldn't speak. She was fully incontinent, and Gertrude's 12-year-old boy hosed her down with cold water while laughing at her. Even in her weakened state, she made one final attempt at escaping before Gertrude caught her at the basement door and stomped on her head. In her last hours, she was given a warm bubble bath, changed into clean clothes, and laid on the mattress. She closed her eyes and never opened them again. Days earlier, Gertrude forced Sylvia to write a letter claiming that she had run away and the boys from the neighborhood were her torturers. Her last attempt at deflecting any blame was to cover Sylvia's body in rubbing alcohol. When police arrived, Gertrude told them that Sylvia had returned home in her bloody and dying state and that she had been trying to nurse her. Everyone was questioned, but no one was talking. No one except Sylvia's 15-year-old sister, Jenny. She told police, "You get me out of here and I'll tell you everything." Gertrude, 5 of her children, and 5 of the neighborhood kids were all arrested for Sylvia's murder. Her autopsy showed 150 wounds, some down to the bone, and she had also bitten through her lips when she died, almost detaching it from her face. Gertrude and her eldest daughter Paula were sentenced to life in prison. However, both of them were released on parole later on. They both changed their names and went on to lead new lives, but Gertrude died in 1990 of lung cancer. Jenny, Sylvia's sister, went on to marry and have 2 children of her own. She spent years on medication due to anxiety from watching her sister's torture and murder. 2 movies have been made based on Sylvia Likens' story, one called An American Crime and the other called The Girl Next Door. That's actually how I heard about this case. Both movies are heartbreaking though, so please take caution when watching. Because of this case, if anyone sees any type of child abuse in the state of Indiana, they are required by law to report it. Imagine your father asking you to help him install a cellar door only to be locked inside by him for the next 24 years of your life. Elizabeth Fritzl was freshly 18 and ready to leave the nest when one day in 1984, her father, Joseph Fritzl, asked her to help him install the door in the basement of their home in Austria. Unaware of his horrific intentions, Elizabeth obliged. As they finished and she was heading out, he suddenly covered her face in a cloth soaked in ether. For the next 24 years, Elizabeth had to endure a suffering that no one could fathom. Joseph convinced his wife, other children, and their neighbors that Elizabeth ran away and joined some religious cult. They believed it because she had previously run away and stayed with a friend for 20 days when she was 15 to get away from her father's abuse, which started when she was 11. Police found her after those 20 days and brought her back home. If it wasn't terrible enough being forced to endure the blazing summers and catching rats with her bare hands, she was also repeatedly abused by her own father over the years of captivity. Initially, he tied her up with an iron chain so that she could barely move, but it caused trouble during the horrendous activities he put her through, and he removed it months later. For the first 5 years in the basement, she was all alone. He assaulted her at least 3,000 times in those 24 years, which resulted in her birthing 7 children. She gave birth to all her children with no medical help for almost 12 years. Joseph provided her with just a disinfectant, a dirty pair of scissors, and a book on childbirth. One of her children died prematurely due to difficulty breathing just 3 days after his birth in 1996. When the baby started to come, Elizabeth tried to end it all, but looking at her kids, she had purpose to live after the initial years of being alone. Joseph held control over her by threatening to end the lives of her and her children if they ever tried to escape. He would also turn off the lights in the basement for days on end so that she'd be in complete darkness. 3 of her children were in the basement with her, while the other 3 mysteriously appeared on the doorstep of Joseph and Rosemary, Elizabeth's mother, as per his planning. He doctored letters to Rosemary from Elizabeth saying that she was well but couldn't take care of the children. One day, Elizabeth's oldest daughter, Kirsten, who was 19 at the time, became extremely ill and needed immediate hospitalization. This is when Elizabeth pleaded with her father to get Kirsten medical attention. Joseph Fritzl, who had never shown mercy in those 24 years, surprisingly took Kirsten to the hospital. This is when things took a turn. Part 2. I faked being asleep all night to see if my wife was lying. My wife has been Baker acted. She didn't hurt herself, just said something concerning in public. I got a call from the hospital this morning asking me to head over for some family therapy. Apparently, she finally wanted to talk. I'll be honest, I'm pretty pissed at the reason why she's been so hateful towards my cats. It's absolutely asinine. It's nothing that anyone had suggested. She's not cheating, she's not sick physically or mentally, she's not bored of the relationship and looking for an out. According to her, one of the cats stepped on her laptop and ruined a story that she was writing. She's hated both cats ever since. I mean, that sucks, but it's not worth trying to emotionally blackmail me into getting rid of them. I asked her why she didn't just tell me the truth and why she'd been lying and refused to talk about it when I asked. Her answer was, because you wouldn't have gotten rid of them otherwise, and explained that when she saw I wasn't willing to abandon them for her, she took offense and made it a goal to have me pick her over them. Sickening. Don't know why she actually admitted to it all. The woman with us asked me how I felt about it all, and I just told the truth. I told her it was a nice run, but I'm probably going to want a divorce. I was asked why, and I told them. I've seen a new hateful, malicious side of her that I want nothing to do with. She was so set on getting rid of the cats over a fan fiction being ruined that she manipulated her husband. My wife started shouting at me that I've betrayed her and that I'm scum for choosing animals over her. At least cats don't give ultimatums like she gave. It sucks that she's been Baker acted and all, I guess, but it's for the best right now. She'll have time to process it all in a safe environment and hopefully come to terms with it. Bad husband, I know. I'm almost sure that I'm going for a divorce. I'm very worried about having her in the same house with my cats. I want my cats safe. I don't want to worry about them being harmed or disappearing. Screw that. Part 2. I laughed in my husband's face when he asked to avoid the prenup. I called into work and took a week off. I'm an independent contractor, so I didn't sign any new contracts. I sat my husband down and suggested that we should see a therapist. He refused. I asked him why he wanted to avoid the prenup. He said because he wanted to combine finances. So I asked to see his bank accounts, and he had been misusing his money and was virtually broke. He basically had less than half of what I spent on my Audi. He had also made a series of bad investments and had apparently sold his property that he owned in NE. But most of his money went to his gambling habit. I knew he gambled, but not at the rate that I saw. I asked where we went from here if he didn't want to go to marriage counseling. He replied that since I made more, he should quit his job and follow his dreams. He wants to be a professional gambler? Is that a thing? I don't know whose money he thinks he's going to use to finance that. I asked him who would support him while he was following his dreams. Since he hadn't supported me, I would also not be supportive. My parents helped me out with the bills while I was in grad school. He flipped out and said that I was lucky to have him and that he should have dumped me for a younger woman. I replied that I should have dumped him for a younger man. I know it was childish, but I couldn't help it. He also said that it was unnatural for me to be making more than he was and that we should have at least 3 kids by now. I confessed that I also lost my shit and told him that the only younger women who would date him were the drunk or desperate ones because he had crazy written all over him. After the whole fiasco, I packed my bags, went to some friend's house, got the number for a good divorce attorney from a friend, and I will meet with him this week and hopefully start the process. I texted my soon-to-be ex that I was filing. His response? He was never going to sign the divorce papers and I was stuck with him whether I liked it or not. Honestly, everything happened so fast that I'm still in shock. I don't even know if I overreacted by talking about divorce so fast. So there's the update. I'm not sure what comes next, but thanks for everything. I'm 25 and my husband 42 have 3 children, a 2-year-old son and a set of twin girls who are 3 months old. We live just down the road from my parents. I have 4 older siblings that all went to college, but I didn't. I'm the only one with kids. All of my family got together for Christmas last year. Whenever I try to engage in a conversation with my family, they seem to just ignore me. My relatives would hold our babies but not talk to me much beyond that. I was so alone. I was late in my first pregnancy when we got married. A few of my siblings had gotten married before I did and they all had very nice weddings with lots of guests. No one had any interest in coming to mine. We trashed the idea of a wedding and got married at the courthouse. I couldn't even get all of my siblings to attend the little ceremony. We couldn't go on a honeymoon at the time, so I was even more miserable. Recently, my sister told me that our family thinks that I'm just a dumb bimbo with no goals in life, so I had babies instead. She says that's why no one values my input or opinion. They think I'm stupid for having children young. My children were not planned. They also think that I'm stupid for being with a man older than me, but he's my one true love. They don't want me to have any influence over large family decisions because they think that I'm dumb. They ignore me and don't make time for me. How do I get them to take me seriously? I'm 43 and have a 22-year-old daughter. All my daughter's life, she struggled with mental health issues. She has ADHD, bipolar, and borderline personality disorder. If I'm being honest, I never really understood a lot of my daughter's disorders. I've always approached mental illness as something you just bury deep down. And as a single mother, I've tried to do my best, but I know that I'm not perfect. Well, recently, my daughter asked if I go to one of her therapy sessions with her, and I only agreed to it because she seemed super excited about it. When we got there, her therapist first asked me how I was raised to think about mental health. I said I wasn't raised to think about mental health at all. She then said that she guessed that. It seemed kind of snarky, but I ignored it. She then asked about my family's history with addiction and mental issues. I denied any, and then she started to list all the things that my daughter told her and asked if they were a lie. They weren't a lie, but I never saw any of these things as big issues. She then began to explain to me BPD is a trauma response. She explained it can be caused by many things, but by me invalidating her emotions, so much like I was invalidating my own, had a part to play in it. She then tried to tell me ways that I can cope with my own trauma so that I can help my daughter cope with hers. After listening to her spew absolute garbage for 30 minutes, I finally got up and told her that she was a fucking quack and didn't know anything that she was talking about. I just stormed out and left. My daughter called me crying an hour later and I told her that she needed to get an actual therapist instead of that bitch. I wasn't upset with my daughter, but I did feel like she kind of threw me to the wolves. After cooling down though, I think maybe I could have handled that wrong, but I'm not sure. Am I the asshole for snapping at my daughter's therapist when she tried to blame my daughter's trauma on me? My wife is a cancer patient. She unfortunately started losing her hair due to chemotherapy and she's been incredibly insecure about it, her lack of hair in particular. She got a wig and started wearing it. I don't mind it. I 100% support her since she only wears it around family and friends. Now my sister lost her apartment after a messy divorce and moved in with her twin daughter, 16, almost a month ago. Things have been going well except for my niece's constant remarks about my wife's wig. They got so hung up on it and kept asking lots of questions about it. They asked to take turns trying it on, suggested that they straighten it with their straightener and so on, which was exhausting. They even pressured to see her without it, but my wife was uncomfortable and refused. Yesterday I got home and found that my wife is locked locking herself in the bedroom and crying. I asked her what happened. She told me that she woke up and didn't find her wig, and then discovered that my nieces took it and hid it and urged her to come out so that they could see her without it. My wife repeatedly asked them to give it back, but they started laughing and recording. My wife had to lock the door to keep the distance because they didn't stop. I was fuming and went to the kitchen and confronted them. They acted confused, but I was able to get the wig back. I lashed out, telling them that they humiliated my wife and embarrassed her by taking her wig. They said it was just a lighthearted prank, which made me go off on them. My sister got involved and said that my wife was just being sensitive and the girls were just curious to see her without her wig, but she overreacted. I told her that her daughters were recording her. She saw nothing wrong in it and said that I overreacted as well. I lost it on her too and told her that she and my nieces are no longer welcome to stay at my home and they needed to leave. I later let them know about the eviction since they thought I wasn't being serious, but they started crying and begging that I let it go. However, my wife is no longer comfortable around them after what they did. My sister called our elderly dad and he begged that I let him stay and insisted my nieces were just acting like typical teenagers. He offered to speak to my wife, but I declined. They've been begging that I change my mind, but I kept refusing. Am I the asshole for evicting my sister and her daughters after they hid my wife's wig and embarrassed her? Story time about when I let my boyfriend pop a pimple and it almost killed me. I at the time was 23, my boyfriend at the time was 25, had been together for almost a year. I was living at his parents' house because I was between homes and he was living at his cousin's. It was one of those nights where he was staying over and I asked him to pop a pimple on my labia because I couldn't see it and he happily obliged. You know, things you ask and do for your SO. So a couple days go by and the pimple grew exponentially, but I didn't really think anything of it. I thought it would resolve itself. The third day, it grew to the size of a golf ball and my nurse advised hotline for my insurance advised me to go to the ER within the next few hours. Of course, work wouldn't let me go because I wasn't actually dying. Well, so they thought. I went home that night and got help with showering because I couldn't even really lift my legs. My boyfriend takes me to the largest trauma center on the West Coast, and while waiting for the OBGYN, they gave me fentanyl for the pain, and boy, that kept me feeling great for the rest of the night. The OBGYN said that there isn't any need to drain it and to just take antibiotics and it should resolve itself, despite that it's actively oozing, but the hole isn't big enough to ooze. Anyway, I pick up the painkillers and antibiotics and head to bed. He calls out of work just because he wanted to be sure that I was okay. The following morning, he wakes up to go pee and feels me and says that I'm on fire, and he can tell that something is super wrong by just the way that I was talking because my speech and my reaction time is very slowed and slurred. Called the nurse advice line and they said to go to the ER ASAP. I'm spiking a fever, like almost 102 degrees. At this point, I could hardly dress myself, so he's helping me get dressed a little bit, and then he takes me to the ER. They're asking me questions, and I have almost no idea where I was. I knew my name, but I didn't know my birthday or why I was there. I'm hardly coherent, but not like passing out. Just there, but not. Wheel is spinning, but no one is home. Thankfully, my boyfriend already knows all that information about me, and the nurse immediately admits me under the code sepsis. The OBGYN comes down and is like, yup, that needs to be drained. Gives me lidocaine in my naughty bits. I scream absolute bloody murder, and she doesn't even give the lidocaine enough time to work and immediately takes the scalpel to my labia and cuts it open. I screamed so loud and squeezed my boyfriend's hand so hard that he told me if he hadn't counter squeezed, his hand would have been broken. They drained it and gave me vancomycin and I feel better. Flagged for admission, but I had just started my job and I couldn't afford to not work, so I went AMA. If you don't know what that means, it means against medical advice. My boyfriend has a bowling league. We go and at the end I start dry heaving and I can't stop. So I'm screaming at my boyfriend to call 911 and I go back to the hospital and I'm admitted. 3 days goes by and my culture came back with an MRSA. It was diagnosed cellulitis with MRSA and sepsis. I spent 6 days in critical care. What didn't click was that he had 2 MRSA infections in his finger, but they drained it and took some antibiotics and he was fine. It took me almost dying for him to get tested to find out that he was a carrier and he was the one who gave me the MRSA. I grew up as a fat kid, but when I got to college, I began taking control of my health and I lost 150 pounds. I had a personal trainer who is now my husband. He was a huge health nut to begin with and really kept me on track and held me accountable. I've been able to keep the weight off for 20 years and we're both giant health nuts. We have 3 kids. Our daughters are 12, 14, and 9. We've always been strict about health with them. They each have a workout machine in their room which they have to use for an hour before dinner, and if we walk in and they aren't on their machines, they get their phones and toys taken away. My 2 oldest girls have rebelled against this a lot. We've also been really strict with nutrition. We never had anything but fruits, veggies, and lean meats in our home, not even bread. At birthday parties, we took them home as soon as the cake and pizza came out, never took them trick-or-treating for Halloween, and had teachers send them to different rooms when they had class parties with food. We also told their friends' parents not to feed them junk. I'll admit, we definitely sheltered them from junk food in fear that they grow up unhealthy. People thought we were ridiculous for the way we raised our kids, and we were warned about them having eating disorders, but we thought we were doing what was best, and everyone was being ridiculous. 3 months ago, we found out our oldest daughters, who go to the same middle school, were sneaking food at vending machines from school with their allowance cash. My husband found out about this from hearing the snacks in their backpacks and had a long talk with them about the dangers of eating those snacks, and took the snacks and their money. I heard him talking to them and he was gentle and calm about it, but both girls ended up in tears. Recently, we got a call from our 12-year-old daughter's school counselor. Apparently, she's been chewing up her food and then spitting it out and making herself throw up in the bathroom when she ate lunch. They also talked to me about my 14-year-old who said that lately she's been skipping breakfast and lunch a few times a week for the past couple years because she was scared we would be mad at her when she ate. counselor was not happy with me and recommended a treatment place for eating disorders. I feel like absolute shit. Like we've caused our daughters to have eating disorders and have to look out for signs for our 9-year-old. I called my mom for help and instead she berated me and called me a piece of shit mom, which was the last thing that I needed to hear. My parents are taking my girls for a couple days while I get everything together and set things up with the eating disorder treatment place for when they come back. I don't know what to do. I feel proud that I didn't raise my kids with junk food addiction and I put their health before their tears about not eating pizza, but now it's come at a price. I've been inconsolable and my husband and I aren't talking right now as we don't know what to do.
Happy Thanksgiving / Black Friday! So since I'll be going to the mall tonight to go Black Friday shopping or whatever, it reminded me of a very interesting story time. One that still gets me kind of mad, I'm not gonna lie. So I was friends with this girl in high school. She had a lot of hobbies, you know, she liked to do makeup, she was into fashion, she loved to shoplift. By the way, do not shoplift this Black Friday. Please don't. You know how wrong that is? It's wrong. I'm not saying I'm a saint. Well, I'm not saying that I was a saint, but I am now, so don't do that. Anyway, so my parents pick us up, we go to the mall to Black Friday shop, and mind you, there are so many people that go to the mall that was in my area, and this was pre-COVID, so yeah, it was packed. Any store you went in, any place in the mall that you were at, you were around at least 20 people. So, you know, for her, that was good, because that's a lot of people to, you know, like, cover her. So anyway, we go into Victoria's Secret, and right off the bat, like, I could tell that she was being sketchy. She would talk really loud about, oh, should I buy this one? Which one should I get? Not making herself discreet at all. So I end up getting something. I'm pretty sure it was like a sweatshirt. And while I was waiting in line, she was still like, you know, browsing around. Once I check out, I go to find her. I'm looking around the store. Like I said, there's a bunch of people. I couldn't find her. Then I see her at the exit with a worker walking in and out of the store. And every single time she walked out, the beeper went off. She didn't have any bags on her, so they couldn't check anything. So we leave. I was like, what did you take and where is it? She pulls down her leggings to show me 40 pairs of underwear. Guys, people are so dumb. Alright, so I have a story time, and it's honestly, it's just making me mad thinking about it. Just to clarify, I'm white. I don't know what it feels like to be discriminated because of the color of my skin. So I need you guys' opinion. Like, I need to know if I have a right to be mad at this. So my new man's, or whatever, is Guatemalan. He's a snack, just saying. But anyway, we go to this corner store, he gets coffee. We're just chilling, minding our own business, and this man walks in yelling. And at this point, he wasn't talking to anybody in particular, he was just like talking, speaking his mind. And basically what he was saying is that a girl, in which he called Mexican, locked her car door when he walked by because he was black. Then he proceeded to say very nasty things about people who are Mexican. But like, this isn't what made me mad. Like, that made me mad, but like, bro. So I wasn't standing next to my boy. Yeah, I've never called him my boyfriend before, but like, my boyfriend. Which I'm not sure if that really played a role in this situation, like whether or not I was standing next to him, but like I feel like it does. I'll explain why in a second. But the guy that was yelling points to my my boyfriend and is like, your girlfriend's locking the car door because the color of my skin. She's I was like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not in no damn car. Like, his girlfriend who? Does he have another girlfriend that I don't know about? No, I don't think so. Thank you. But anyway, my boyfriend was like, he was like, I ain't locked no damn door. Like the tough guy he is. No, I'm kidding, but like for real. But he was like, I ain't locked no damn door. Get out of here with that. So like I said, I feel like maybe if I was standing next to him, he wouldn't have thought that he was the girl's boyfriend. Or who knows, maybe he still would have, like, you know. But it's like, how? Like, I don't know if I could even have an opinion on this. Like, I'm not really sure. And I'm not trying to be offensive in any way, shape, or form. Because, like I said, I have no idea what it feels like to be discriminated in this way. So, all I'm saying is, why are you sitting here and telling everybody that you're so mad because you're being discriminated against? And then turn around and then start discriminating my man and acting like he's here with another girl just because she's Hispanic. Like, no, he's with me. He's with me. Like, what the I don't know. I just want to hear your guys' opinion. Like, what would you get mad at that? Like, if your boyfriend I'm sorry, was being called Mexican when he's Guatemalan and being accused of something solely because he's Hispanic as well, like, girl, tell me you wouldn't be mad too. So I was scrolling through Instagram Reels and I seen this trend and oh, these came out so fire. Like, I just had to try it. I had to recreate them. Like, the way that just it looks like almost an illusion, like an optical illusion, like I'm about to lose myself in this girl's nails, you know? Kind of like I fell into a different dimension when I looked into her hand. Alright, well, anyway, obviously I had to start it off by, you know, putting on some acrylic And honestly, I could have just like used the nail tip, but I was kind of bored yesterday, so I was like, you know what, I might as well just like put some acrylic on these bad boys before I put the gel, like just in case they came out really cute and then I could like sell them or something. Honey buns. Let me tell you, these are not for sale. These are not for sale. These will be going directly into the garbage bin. And I wish I could tell you that I found a technique that really works, but girl, no. I tried every technique that I could think of in my head because, like, I mean, there's only so many ways that this could even be done. I thought of 5, but every single one of them, it just failed me. And I'm really upset about it because those nails are so cute. I'm trying to get lost into another dimension with my nails. Like, what? But, like, this is the best I can come up with. Oh, that one was really bad. That looked like string beans or something. I don't know. But yeah, long story short, I'll never forget the day in high school when this kid patted on my head and asked me if I was okay.